You open 3 different remote job boards and search for the same kind of role. Customer support, perhaps, or a design position. Each site shows you a different set of listings, even though you type the exact same search term. A common assumption is that remote job boards are basically interchangeable, and that the site you choose mostly affects convenience rather than which opportunities you can actually see. In practice, remote hiring does not work that way. Different sources expose different slices of the remote job market, shaped by how each platform is built, which employers choose to post there, and how those employers define the boundaries of a role. This distinction matters for international applicants in particular. Doing remote work and being eligible to be hired for a specific remote role are not the same thing, and a listing appearing in your search does not by itself establish that the employer behind it can engage you. By the end of this video, you will understand why remote job sources differ from one another, and why finding a listing is only the starting point for evaluating it. It is not a signal that a role is available to you personally. The first difference is how each platform labels geography. A listing might say anywhere, or it might name a specific country, a region, or a time zone window. These labels are not standardized across platforms, so the same word can carry different meaning from one source to another. Some platforms also separate a company's headquarters from a second distinct field, describing where that company says it hires remotely from. This distinction matters because the country where a company is based is not always the same as the countries where it is actually prepared to engage remote workers. Wellfound is one example of a platform that documents this separation, using a distinct field for where a company hires remotely from. It also notes that some automatically posted jobs may not include complete remote location information. When that information is missing, it should be read as simply not stated, not as evidence that the role is open worldwide. This is where the distinction becomes important. Country, region, and time zone labels function as discovery controls, which are features that help a listing surface in a relevant search. They describe how a platform or employer has categorized a listing. They do not guarantee that everyone who can see that listing meets the employer's actual requirements. The second difference is the opportunity model behind a listing. A company might be offering a direct employee role, independent contracting, or freelance project work, and this shapes where a role tends to appear just as much as geography does. A company hiring for a direct employee role generally needs a supported employment structure in the worker's location. A company looking for defined project work may instead turn to an independent work or freelance marketplace. This is a different engagement path that still carries its own legal, tax, and classification questions. Upwork is one example of a freelance marketplace built around independent work. General remote job boards, by contrast, often list full-time and contract roles side by side in the same search results. So 2 platforms can both describe themselves as showing remote opportunities while exposing very different types of work underneath that label. The role may be remote, while the path behind it is structured very differently depending on where you happen to be searching. A third difference appears even before a candidate starts searching. Employers decide which sourcing channels to use. A company may choose a platform because it reaches a particular professional community, supports the opportunity model it intends to use, or fits an existing recruiting workflow. A role posted through one channel is not distributed across every other remote job source by default, so an employer's platform choice also shapes whether a given candidate ever encounters the advertised opportunity in the first place. Consider a simple hypothetical scenario. A company builds its support team as direct employees, but currently supports payroll only in a small group of countries. When that company looks for new support staff, it may choose a remote employee board whose audience and discovery controls line up with those countries. A different company, needing short-term design work for a single project, may instead post on an independent work marketplace built around freelance contracts. Both companies are hiring remotely, and both might use the word remote in their listing. But a candidate searching only one of these 2 types of platforms may never encounter the other company's opening simply because of where each employer chose to post. Here is the mental model worth carrying forward. Remote job sources are not neutral windows onto one universal remote job market. Each one has its own employer audience, its own way of labeling geography, and its own mix of opportunity models. Seeing a listing establishes platform visibility. a platform has surfaced an advertised opportunity. It does not establish hiring eligibility, which means whether the employer's requirements and supported structure actually permit engaging you, specifically, in that role. Discovery controls like country, region, and time zone labels can make a search more relevant, but they remain discovery tools rather than individual eligibility checks. The specific listing and the employer's stated requirements provide the next information needed to evaluate those boundaries. Explore the Remote Job Source Comparison Workbook to compare the documented characteristics of 9 remote job and independent work platforms and build a personal shortlist for further review. You can find it linked below this video.